We're still at 1961 and this is another movie review. This is The Young Savages, directed by John Frankenheimer, a director that I've got a lot of time for. I think this may be one of his very earliest directions. The movie's based on a story, A Matter of Conviction, by Evan Hunter and Edward Anhalt, and it stars Burt Lancaster in the lead role as Hank Bell. He's a district attorney in the city of New York, out of Harlem. His wife is Karen Bell, played by Dina Morell. His boss is Dan Cole, played by Edward Andrews. Other significant members of the cast include Vivian Nathan, who plays Mrs. Escalante. She's the mother of the victim in this murder case. Shelley Winters plays Mary de la Pace. She's the mother of one of the alleged perpetrators. Telly Savalas plays Police Lieutenant Gunderson. And John Davis Chandler, he is one of the thugs, one of the Italian thugs, Arthur Reardon, aged 17 years. Another one of the three in the party, Stanley Christian, plays Danny DePace. He's the youngest, the 15-year-old. More on the significance of these ages in a second. And Stanley Christian plays Neil Nephew plays Anthony Batman Aposto. He is the third in the gang who are on trial for the murder of a young Puerto Rican blind boy in Harlem, New York. His sister, Pilar Sierra, plays Luisa Escalante. And the judge is a significant supporting act. Robert Burton is the judge. So that is basically the cast. And this is a story set in New York, in Harlem, in downtrodden Harlem. It's about the murder of a young teenage Puerto Rican who just happens to be blind by three young Italian teenagers who go across town into an area where they shouldn't be, and what appears to be a malicious stabbing to death of the young Puerto Rican man. And this provokes the intervention of Lancaster as the DA, Hank Bell, who, as a youngster, was brought up in the Italian part of town. So, we have a situation in downtown Harlem. Two gangs from different parts of town. They hate each other. Well, one gang is called the Thunderbirds. They are the Italian gang. They are, of course, nicknamed the Wops. And on the other side of town, the Spits, called the Puerto Rican gang. And we witness early on fights going on between the two rival gangs. And of course, Harlem, a notorious area historically for ghettos, New York's place where all the immigrants were dumped. And just to add some more fuel to the fire, this is where the African Americans gravitated to. And historically we've seen a number of movies portraying the violence in that area, including the Hoodlum, recently a series, The Godfather of Harlem, and such notorious gangland killers as Lucky Luciano and others, Bumpy Johnson, you name it, they've all been in and around that area. So that's the backdrop to this. It looks on the face of it to be an open and shut case. The district attorney is being pressurised to go for the full extent of the law. They're looking for the electric chair as the source of punishment for these three boys. To complicate matters, Hank Bell is, of course, an up-and-coming district attorney who is of Italian extraction, and these boys are from his own neighbourhood. He, however, managed to escape the criminal lifestyle and did this through education, becoming a lawyer, and also marrying into a more affluent middle class type of family. His wife is very much a liberal and is dead against the idea of capital punishment, so we've got the added spice of a problematic relationship because of this particular case. Early on in the movie, we experience the funeral for the blind Puerto Rican boy, which is extremely moving, and we gauge the feeling of that community that they want revenge. They want these three boys to go to the chair, and nothing short of that will satisfy them. But at the same time, we become aware that Shelley Winters' character, Mary DePace, has, as a teenager, had a brief romance with the district attorney, Hank Bell, and she makes a plea to him to try as hard as he can to secure the innocence for her boy, who she is absolutely adamant is innocent of the charges. Bell, at that particular moment in time, is pretty convinced that the boys are all guilty. Pressure above from Cole, who's looking for a governorship, and certainly he needs to be seen to be having a strict adherence to the law in the area, is putting him under pressure. But this adds a further sort of piece to the plot that I found quite interesting. We see a flashback to an incident in a swimming pool where racism between the two rival groups is shown vividly, and that the young boy Danny leaps to the defence and the protection of the blind boy, who others in the gang are intent on making a very frightening situation for the youngster. And this is shown to be one major reason why Danny can't have been responsible for the stabbing. We get a taste of the social and political issues in the areas, officer shortages, social disadvantages of the youngsters in the area. A strong case is put forward for how these rundown areas contribute towards delinquency, contribute towards hate, and that youngsters are wanting to cling to the identity of their own social groups to get some form of self-esteem. All the sociological arguments, we get to hear of them, and we later on, as we move towards the court trial, we also hear from a psychiatrist doing a sort of psychological assessment on how these youngsters can develop psychotic personalities, with particularly reference to Reardon, who is a really evil 17-year-old, full of hostility, full of anger, and full of hate. And one begs the question, how has this young man developed this behaviour? We then move on to looking at how the DA goes about his work and starts to chip away at possible circumstantial evidence with regard to Danny. There's a very powerful interview scene where Danny shows his loyalty to his Thunderbird group, but it's clear that he's overreacting and hiding the truth. And Bell picks up on this and becomes much more clued in to the fact that the three boys who are going to be tried should be handled in completely different ways, reflecting on their particular circumstances. He notes that Batman is a young boy who has severe learning disabilities and is very much a follower and really has no comprehension as to why he does what he does. And this becomes quite another aspect of the movie that I found impressive. Further mitigating circumstances that could have provoked such attack comes to Bell through a discussion with a boy who has leadership characteristics, and suggests, on the Italian side that is, and suggests that the blind boy wasn't all that he seemed to be, and that he was acting as a sort of an opt-out when the Puerto Rican gang took it upon them place to attack the Italian gang. He was there and enabled them to hide their weapons before the police came about. And because the boy was blind, he wasn't suspected of any involvement. Also, Bell is subject to a brutal attack on the Underground Railway. And when he's interviewed in the hospital, he is completely unaware of which gang might have carried out the attack, which tends to put it into some sort of perspective about how both gangs are as strongly anti-police as each other. The final part of the movie does focus on the trial, and I did feel that the movie lost its way here. Because at that particular moment, although there are some mitigating circumstances that have come to light with regard to leniency on the part of the juvenile Danny, the court case then leads to new evidence mysteriously appearing, which leads the film to a rather, how can I put it, frustrating conclusion. It sort of becomes a little bit Hollywood-wise in how it's completed, almost as if we need to have some sort of happy ending. Not happy, but a better ending than having three boys sent to the electric chair as punishment. So I thought that the last scenes were disappointing. But having said that, overall, it's a film that I was impressed by. The three actors that played the three accused, I thought their performances were striking, were believable, and were passionately emotional. Lancaster produces his usual top-class performance, and this was an extremely well-directed movie by Frankenheimer. So there we have it then. It's The Young Savages. It was released in 1961, and get to have a look at it.